I'm Professor Sally Beach, and I'm the co-director of the OU Center for Peace and Development. And I'm sitting here with my colleague and friend, Sister Rosemary Nyirumbe. Sister Rosemary is an activist in Northern Uganda supporting women and women's empowerment, and also a doctoral student in education at the University of Oklahoma. Welcome, Sister Rosemary.
Thank you so much.
We're going to be talking about the work that you do in post-conflict Northern Uganda with women. So to start, if you just tell me a little bit about the work that you have done since the conflict ended 10 or 12 years ago, and even the work you did while the conflict was ongoing with women.
I will talk about what I've done before and after maybe, but a little bit what really motivated me to start doing what I'm doing. It's because of the 2 decades of rebel activities in Northern Uganda, which caused massive displacement, destruction of social infrastructures, destruction of life. And I found this was quite challenging because most of the people who were deeply affected have been women and children. And of course, children are always the future of the nation. And I found this was quite compelling and a big challenge, not only for me, but for the whole of the country. And that's all what motivated me to start trying to listen to these women's voices, try giving a second chance to these women and their children. So and my focus of all this has been to empower them after the rebel activities, after all what has been robbed from them, after their dignity taken away from them, to empower them to be again members of the society by providing for themselves through literacy, through skills training.
So what do you think is the most unique thing about the women that you work with in Northern Uganda now?
The problem about the women we work with is that most of these women, or 3/4, or let me say majority of them, are women who were either abducted by the rebels, trained as child soldiers, spent their lives from their early childhood, early age of education, spent time with the rebels, or they spent time in displaced people's camps, because the civil war in Northern Uganda lasted for 2 decades. This really affected them so deeply, so much so that they lost their chances of education. And in this way, we are ending up in Northern Uganda with a large group of semi-literate women and children. And the quality of education too has been deeply affected because of the long-standing conflict.
So what kind of insecurities then do the women find themselves in now after the conflict?
I think that is really quite a big thing to talk about, because whenever we talk about insecurity, everybody looks at it from the periphery. We look at it like, in order to be secured, to feel somebody is secured, there should be no gunshots, there should be that absence of conflict. I find that is not the only thing. The insecurity these women go through is deeper than that. They go through so many things, even insecurity in their society, lack of acceptance, insecurity because they are not able to read and write, insecurity because they cannot earn a living, they are not economically empowered. So that poverty is a great poverty, and which makes them feel more insecure. And I think if these women are given a chance to describe their own sense of insecurity, they would go beyond the gunshots. they would really talk about the insecurity they feel differently from what other people may imagine. The insecurity these women go through is also being in their own family, in their own families where they do not feel secure at all, even in their own marriages. The conflicts they go through within the family, within the society, and everywhere makes them more and more insecure.
So what kind of insecurities within the family would impact their abilities to take care of their children or to earn a living?
The women can feel more insecure in their families because, first of all, they do not own anything. First of all, let me give one example, for instance, about ownership of land or any property in the family. They cannot own anything. But apart from that, a woman who has been in captivity or was trained as a soldier or a child soldier comes and gets married to another man with many children, always will feel insecure because her marriage is not stable. She is not even allowed to mention that she has been in captivity or these children belong to somebody else. So she's always unclear of what will happen next. And so these are great ways of thinking that a person cannot support herself. A person cannot be empowered in the family. And also the men, the husbands, will not allow these women to own anything or even to mention that they belong to that family. They always feel like they're aliens.
So then describe some of the things you've done over the last 20 years before the conflict ended and since the conflict ended to support these women and help advocate for these women and help the women become advocates for themselves.
I think one of the things that I can really talk of, which up to now I've been doing and which started a long time ago, is really to make sure that these women are economically empowered to live on their own, even if they're married or they're living as single mothers. I've been trying my best to give them the skills training to help them to become economically settled or sustainable in the community. But I have realized over time that that's just not enough. We need to go further. We need to make these women even more empowered by giving them the basic literacy, because that is going to be the only thing which will make them more exposed and will make them to learn from other people, because they can move and see how things are moving. What I've realized about the importance of empowering these women economically and also with literacy is that they gain that they get the benefits, which I'm sure the benefits will trickle down to the community, will trickle down to their children, and it will really benefit everybody. And I am sure if a woman is empowered economically, is empowered with knowledge, she will be able to stand on her own. She will be able to share her knowledge with other people, and she will be able to learn from other people as well.
So then what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had working with these women, either in helping them gain skills to be able to support themselves or in helping them become literate?
One of the biggest challenges that we have to face with these women, first of all, is that when we allow these women to come, we are not allowing just one person to come. They come sometimes with their children or with a child at least to school. And so the biggest challenge I have always faced is to be economically stable to provide for them. But apart from that, we also receive a lot of challenges from getting people who are really prepared to pass the knowledge, the adequate knowledge these women would need. For instance, even in terms of literacy, even in terms of this vocational skills training, there are very few people who are really, really well prepared to pass it and make sure that it is meeting the needs of these women. We have to rely on people we prepare ourselves. But for me, that's not enough. That's why I think it's very, very important to be able to stretch our arms to request some help, even from well-prepared people from abroad, from the United States, from everywhere, because I find the work is quite challenging and we cannot just meet it alone.
But you have had successes in the work that you've done. Tell us about some of the successes that you've had over the past, let's say 15 years.
Yeah, one of the successes that I must say I can look at is that a lot of these women actually who pass from our centers have been able to settle down and are able to start their own small businesses in town. And I feel always really satisfied when I move in town. I hear some of these women calling me by my name, inviting me to see their own businesses they're running. And that really gives me a sense of satisfaction, not only for myself, but I see it is also in them because they have their pride. They talk about what they are doing with a lot of dignity. And also I can see they feel like they are accepted more in the society because they are not relying on people, but they're trying their best to rely on what they can produce with their own hands. And that's why I feel to empower them with more knowledge of literacy is something even which will put them to a better stage.
So I know you have started a basic school for women because I've worked with you on that basic school for women. What do you think was the biggest challenge in getting it started and up and going?
That school of literacy was like a dream, and I would never imagine it would even take off if I didn't receive some support from you and from the University of Oklahoma from the Faculty of Education. And to me, it has been a dream which I really hope and can see is now taking off because it's like it is in my mind that women need to be more empowered with literacy. And I have seen our women, even in my own village town, that women are not able to read in this age. When women cannot write their own names, I have witnessed in our clinics when women come, when they are asked, they say, a pregnant woman comes and you ask her, say, how many months are you? She's not able to tell exactly how many months it is. And if you make it even more simple and say, when was the last date of your menstrual period? It was hurting me so deeply to hear a woman say, I don't know, my husband knows. That was very, very painful for me. And that is a sign that they needed really literacy, reading and writing, to empower them on top of what they were learning.
How do you think basic literacy skills work to help make them less insecure, since we talked about insecurity issues?
You know, it really would open their eyes more to see what goes on in the world. Also, one of the biggest examples I always keep in mind and I tell everybody is women do not want people to misrepresent them. For instance, if you interview a woman, she would love to read her own interview, what she said, and she would like to see that it is accurately recorded. And that has been done. There were a lot of mistakes made in the past by people who were interviewing these women who did not know how to read and write. And I always recall one woman who found her own interview was on a national magazine, and somebody else read it and came and reported to her, said, look, in this newspaper, it is said you are going to marry the rebel leader when he comes out. Did you say it? The woman said, I didn't say like that. So I think for me, literacy would be very, very empowering. if a woman can give an interview and she's able to read the script with her own eyes and she follows and makes correction, she will be part of that. And that's what I've seen has happened many, many times.
So then, looking bigger than just literacy, what do you think is the role of education then in combating insecurity and continued peace building?
I think the role of education for me is really very, very big, not only in terms of peace and security, but also in terms of protection, in terms of provision for these women. Because what I'm looking at, we have removed these women from a certain situation. But after removing them from that situation, what else are we doing? I think education will provide that protection, that security, that sense of security for them and for their children. And I look at education also in terms of protection from modern slavery. And the modern slavery is exploitation. It is being deep in poverty. You don't know what to do. Somebody has to dictate on you on what to do. So I am very much for that protection and provision of anything which can bring back the dignity of these women.
You are a doctoral student in education here at the University of Oklahoma. What made you decide first to go work on an advanced degree, and second, to choose education as what you wanted to study?
You know, it's all like crazy, definitely. And I've seen with all what I've studied, I'm happy that I've not been studying in vain. All my studies and all what I plan to study are demand driven. When I did development studies at the university, it was not because I just wanted. I had already worked a lot in the medical field. And one time it came to my mind, I asked a question and I said, how long am I going to treat people without knowing the cause of the sicknesses? So I thought it would be very, very important for me to do development studies to find out exactly how we can go towards finding the causes of sicknesses instead of just treating. And that is one thing which drove me to do development studies. And when I thought of taking the doctoral degree in education, it was also another strange but very striking to me that I was looking at how these women's levels of education could be advanced. And not only our women, but it could be women in any part of Uganda. And I thought it would be good for me to know exactly what education means. I need to be part of it. And actually, I was talking with somebody yesterday when we were discussing about the new training we are going to take up in terms of helping these women, give them business skills and education. I said, yeah, I know I am going to supervise it, but what am I supervising if I don't know what it is? So I asked myself, I asked them, I said, can I do a small training on that? Because I need to supervise what I know. And that's exactly with this education program, the PhD I'm taking. I need to be part of what I would like to be done. It's just like walking the talk.
So, thinking about education then, and what you've learned as part of your degree, what are some things you'd like to be an advocate for in Uganda related to education generally, and then education for women in particular?
I really would like very much to be that advocate for peace for women, and also that a person who can help these women identify the causes of conflict. They can identify all the problems which would make a woman become a victim and remain a victim. I'd like to advocate for that. And I would like to encourage that women in our society should be able to speak up, because I know that we've got the stereotype mentality in my society that women are always last. But I would like to see that women can also stand up and say, we can be forward, we can be first.
So you're getting ready to start a dissertation once you leave the US, and are able to go back home in spite of the pandemic. Thank you, vaccine. Tell us a little bit about what your dissertation is going to be about and what you hope you will learn from it.
I think my dissertation is really going to be all about what type of knowledge these women have already. And it's like I'm going to start digging something which is already there. It's not that I'm going in the vacuum. And that's where I think I am going to learn more from them, from their knowledge, which they already have. I'm going to make sure that I am a student while they are also students. That means we would like to see exactly from the cultural point of view, what are the values we can put out together with these women? And how can these values be put in a way that it is validated? We value it, and even not only us, but also the world and other people can see that this is an important part of the knowledge we need to include on the bigger table of education.
People who are going to be watching this on our website or on the Security in Context website may not know your work. What are maybe the 2 or 3 most important things that you think you've done over the last 10 years that you'd like for people to understand?
I think the program we have been running to train women have already been proven, and it can also be seen by other people or anybody who would come and would just want to visit. They can see how some of our students are quite successful on our program and also outside. They are employed, they are trained, and especially you could get students who also have turned to become trainers for others. And I find that is quite compelling and very successful to see that our own students can become like lead coaches for others. And apart from that, it would be good to see that all what I've been trying to put forward has not been in vain. Most of these women have acquired some form of skills by all means in dressmaking and cutting, in basket weaving or hairdressing. And of course, people will really be surprised to see that all what has been put on our school compound, which looks like not a school compound, it looks a bit crazy because we have got a place for guests, we have got a restaurant, we have got a clinic. Somebody would be surprised why all these things are there. All these things are put to give some practical training to our own students. Instead of sending them out where we would not be able to supervise them, we keep them on the compound on their practicals. Their industrial training is done by us who provide them the training. And so in this way, we are able to gauge how much they have learned. And it is not just in a month or two, but it is something done continuously. And over time, they are paid for what they do at the same time. Well, I think that is quite compelling.
Now, you expanded from Gulu because St. Monica's started on the compound there in Gulu with the vocational school, adding in the restaurant and the clinic and all of the other things. But you expanded then further north into the town of Atiak. What made you decide to expand north to there?
The reason for expanding that was simple. I didn't want to displace women from one location to another. First of all, the difficulties of traveling or bringing all the students in Gulu was one. But the biggest problem was actually to be quite demanding to let these students come and begin in a different environment. I wanted to create a protective, practical, and educative environment which can provide a quality, sustainable education for these women wherever they are. That means I also wanted these women to become effective in their own communities. Because I know that Atiak itself was one of those places which suffered a big blow from the rebel activities, and there were a lot of women and children who all needed training, and bringing them all to Gulu would be overwhelming, and the number would be great. So I really carefully decided to expand it to Atiak, and I knew that that would provide a different feel for the people, even within there, especially women, and also it's like carrying another quality services to people in that place. And I think by expanding further north, I didn't really want to say I'm going to stop there, because from there I moved to start a farm. And that farm is also to provide a quality education for women in agriculture. Agriculture being the backbone of economy in the country is one of the skills which we always neglect, many people neglect. That's why I wanted again that to be like a practical place where we could teach people practical skills in agriculture. And soon I'm starting the street business school for both Gulu and Atiak, for women in Gulu and Atiak. And the street business school is very interesting because it will be helping these women to increase their income. Maybe if somebody is able to get $5 in 1 week, we could easily help her to get $10 in a week. So we're going to work towards that.
In both Gulu and in Atiak, one of the things you did was also start a kindergarten and childcare center for the women who are going to your school. Why did you do that?
You know, I really strongly believe it's the most important thing is to have women study together with their children. When I thought of this the first time, it was scary, and the thought was not easily accepted and taken by everybody. But I insisted on doing that because I realized most of these women were not secured in their society, and being less secured, anybody, especially a mother, would love very much to be close to her children. And bringing the women to study together with their children was a great opportunity of letting them know their children are safe, not only safe, but being provided also opportunity for education. But again, I realized for women to study with their children, it would be another great point of sharing knowledge. Maybe they're able to go back home and follow their children and even learn from their children, and children learn from their mothers. I know it was all crazy, and I say I must be able to thank the College of Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma, for this great moment, for embracing the literacy together for women and children. I'm very, very grateful because all this was like a dream, and people were all thinking, okay, this is crazy to have women and children together. But children are receiving now quality education in kindergarten in Igolo, and in Natiak, we have got kindergarten and primary school at the same time. And I'm sure, I'm hoping, I'm not going to stop only in primary. In future, we shall expand to secondary school.
If you expand to secondary school, will the women who come through the School for Women be able to join the secondary school if they're available, if they
I
can?
think I will leave it to them if they really decide, because one of the insecurity of women, which we didn't talk about, is that fear of sitting in a classroom. Most women are afraid. They think their age has already excluded them from sitting in a classroom. But if I get a woman who is determined to study and sit in primary or in secondary, I would let them embrace any type of education. That's why I like to be an example of craziness of learning. I like to learn anything as long as I can learn. And I would like the women to do the same.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about the work that you do, or working women after conflict, or peace building?
I think one of the things which we need to maybe talk about is the importance of all what we have been doing, which has expanded to other women in the whole of Northern region, starting from Karamoja, Arua, and in all those districts which we did not dream of. That is the peace conference. For me, the peace conference is so much in my heart, and I love to see women coming together to share exactly the causes of conflicts in their different communities. And it is interesting that the peace conference brings women who are knowledgeable, women who have no literacy, women who are leaders in their communities, women who are leaders with the government. I love that because that is when they become mentors to one another. And that's when we can really expand. We learn and we teach other women, and we go out to help other women. The most interesting part is our ability to embrace even women from refugees camps to join us, women who always felt so isolated that they are refugees from South Sudan, they would fit nowhere. When they come to this conference, they feel just like any other woman. And you can see the joy of being together, of learning from one another, from sharing the same situations of conflict other people go through.
Traditional cultural roles or cultural roles that have changed because of the conflict impact the insecurity of the women?
Yeah, to a large extent it does. Because in the past, there were some distinct roles for women and distinct roles for men. But with the conflict, these roles have been changed. We find that women are now deeply involved in what would be accomplished by men. Like, for instance, in Northern Uganda, like among Acholi or Alur or Madi and so forth, you would never find a woman constructing a house. But now, women are constructing houses because some of these women have no husbands. They have to be just like heading their own families. So a woman might be playing both roles of a man and a woman. In some areas like Karamoja, definitely, it's different. Women construct houses. That is their cultural role. So I think the conflict has actually impacted and has changed a lot of roles of women. Like another role which has always been designed for men have been the role of agriculture, digging. Now you find a woman must dig, a woman must fend for the family, a woman must look for how her family may not suffer from starvation. She has to look for food. That was the role of a man in the past. But now most of these women are like single mothers, and most of these women, maybe their husbands have died. I have seen, because of conflict, there are so many young widows in Northern Uganda. So they have to embrace the roles of men.
Okay, any last thoughts that you would like to share before I stop recording?
I don't think I really have anything to share, but I'm very grateful to all the programs we are running together with all of you, and especially OU has been very, very much behind all what we are doing, and I hope we can do more things together.